Dear chess friends, welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to an incredible game that I prepared for you today. We have here Stockfish versus Rubi from the Computer Rapid Chess Championship that you can follow now on the official chess.com website. This game is so incredible. I cannot really wait to show you this one because this game has a beautiful theoretical novelty, a beautiful new idea in the Slav defense, the Chameleon variation. And this game is so cool because in one moment Stockfish will sacrifice the knight in move 9 just in order to get a central pawn storm. So really beautiful chess theory, an amazing game again, a wild attacking game here played by the fish. So let's see now this epic game. Stockfish with the white pieces open with move knight to f3. Rubi's response was d5, d4, knight to f6, c4. The game transposes now into the structures of the queen's gambit. We have now the move c6, the Slav defense, knight to c3, the three knights variation, and usually black in this types of lines is going into semi-Slav structures with the move e6, or plays maybe the check variation with the move d takes c4. If I would play now this game with the black pieces, I would recommend you to play the move d takes c4. We have discussed the check variation here already on my YouTube chess channel. You can also watch my studies about these types of positions. So in the game, Rubi played the Chameleon variation with the move a6. The idea is clear: to play d takes c4 and then to connect all of these pawns here on the queen side with the move b5. We have now the move e3, which is the calm line now by Stockfish. Stockfish is waiting now, of course, Rubi to take d takes c4, but then the bishop comes out with a beautiful tempo. The downside a little bit about this line is that your bishop on c1 is a little bit blocked out by its own pawns, but now Stockfish has different ideas in mind. So in the game b5 played by Rubi, Stockfish plays the interesting c5, paralyzes now the queen side and is creating also now space advantage on the 5th rank. Now the basic strategic goal for black is to launch somehow the e5 move to break and enter here with the move e5. In the game, knight from b to d7, so you see Rubi is preparing this kind of an idea, but now Stockfish plays queen to b3 and is preparing some ideas, maybe bishop to d3, e4, a4 is in one particular moment, I think, an interesting idea to simply search for a clarification now on the queen side and similar stuff, so breaking a little bit here this annoying pawn chain on the queen side. So now Rubi plays a rook to b8. An interesting idea because b4 is coming for sure. There's nothing that can be done, I think, immediately against this move b4, but Stockfish plays now the aggressive e4. And put your seatbelts on. Look how Stockfish is now dismantling, destroying these types of structures. If you play d takes e4, this is not good because knight to g5 will eventually recapture now the pawn. Here we have already a checkmate threat, so in the next couple of moves this e4 pawn will be taken, and white should be slightly better, especially because of this space advantage on the 5th rank. So now after move e4, Rubi plays the aggressive move b4. Look at this, the pawn is attacking the knight, and the knight on d7 is connected to the rook on b8. If you don't move, of course, the knight, you lose the knight because the rook is not loosed on b8. And the downside is, of course, also that the knight is controlling the e4 score. If you move the knight somewhere, then the pawn on e4 is falling. So now Stockfish has to play this aggressive move, knight to d5. Really wild stuff. This is the way to go, and this is actually correct theory. But look how really tricky this line is, because I'm showing you now the database here in the right corner. Look at this. We have only 2 games in the database in this particular line. For instance, if you play knight to e4, that was one of the continuation, then the problem is you get this one, knight to b4, and even if you play something like a5, this is not working here for black. Knight to c6, rook to b3, knight to d8, you step back, and now knight to c6 is obviously a much better continuation. So look at this. After move knight to d5, you have to play now the move c takes d5, simply taking out the knight. But now you see this game that we're following in the right corner. We have here Martin Mrva against Dusan Schwartz. Here the game e5 has been played, and e5 is not good. Stockfish played here the correct choice, e takes d5. So e5 is a bad move, that's why I'm showing you this. So here, this move e takes d5 that you see now is actually a theoretical novelty, and this is the way to go. Because now, if you play e5 like Mrva did here against Schwartz, then after move knight to e4 and queen to d5, the problem is now that actually here black has a drawish idea. Black can play play immediately here this idea, knight from e to c5, and actually here black is even slightly better. Look at this, after knight to c5, d takes c5, e6, you step back, bishop to b7, and now we take out here. Look at this pawn on c5, and actually black is, I think, taking over here, especially because you have the weakness here on e5. So you see, after move knight to d5 and c takes d5, you should take e takes d5, not make progress here with move e5, because black can simplify the game. You can eventually, as we said, take out the pawn on d5, but now knight to c5, knight from pardon me, e to c5 is solving all of the positional problems here in black's camp. So after move e takes d5, the game is transposing into wild structures. Look at this, Stockfish has now the central pawn storm, but has also one piece down. So let's see now how this can continue, because of course, obviously, there are many tactical possibilities now for both sides. So in the game, g6 was played by Rubi. e6 you cannot play here in order to develop the dark square bishops like this, because you get simply d takes e6, and after f takes e6, white should not pick up now the pawn on e6, because then queen to e7 simplifies the game too much. Here bishop to c4 is perfectly fine. After something like knight to d5, look at this, knight to g5, we're continuing the pressure. You can maybe play knight to f6, but castling, h6, queen to h3. So I think you find your moves here, but the main goal is to keep your pieces on the board, not to trade off too much pieces, because if you trade off too much of your material, then of course the game couldn't reach the endgame standard. Of course, then black should be slightly better. So that's why after move g6, Stockfish played something else, played simply bishop to c4. So you see Rubi never played this move. e6 is trying to develop somehow the bishop on g7. So we have now bishop to g7, bishop to f4, hitting the rook steps back, kingside castling, and now a3 here by Stockfish. a3 is a must move here for white, because many of us would play the move queen to b4, but this is actually not good. Queen to b4 equalizes the game again here for white, for black, pardon me, because after queen to b4, a5 is now a possibility. You have to step back, and now after something knight to h5, bishop to g5, h6, you have to step back, and now a4, you see black is getting counterattacks, so black is gaining some spaces, black is activating the pieces again. You have to play queen to a3, and something like bishop to a6 could, I think, equalize the game in a good way here for black. At least we can trade off many pieces now. So in my opinion, this is not a good continuation here for white. So that's why a3 played first by Stockfish. We have here the b takes a3, queen to a3. We have knight to e4, and now rook to e1, attacking now the knight. And also notice that the pawn on e7 is a little bit weak, is hanging here in the center of the board. So that's why knight to f6. We have queen to b3, bishop to d7, played by Rubi. Rubi leaves now even the protection of the pawn on a6, but it doesn't matter. Stockfish is not going for this. Stockfish is simply activating the pieces further, because Stockfish realizes there could be something going on, especially here in the center of the board, because we have to search, I think, here for opportunities to create dynamics, to somehow let the pawns roll here. So that's, I think, the good game here by Stockfish. So queen to c8, we have queen to e3, and after bishop to b5, Stockfish again doesn't want to trade off more pieces. This is a good choice. Stockfish stays still with the bishop on the board. We have now g5 here by Rubi. g5 is a must move, because if you play something like a5 here, if you don't want to give up your pawn on g5, then the problem is now here you play first the move h3, and after something like I don't know, queen to b7, we have here this idea, queen to f3, and there's simply no good escape square for the knight. So in the next couple of moves we will eventually play rook to e4, knight to e4, queen to e4, so we will give up the rook for two minor pieces. But in even this scenario, I think that you cannot really tolerate here this annoying pawn storm in the center of the board. So after move bishop to a2, Rubi didn't play on this ideas to somehow get the knights out, played simply g5, sacrifice now the pawn. After bishop to g5, knight to g5, we have queen to g5, and we have now reached this position in which, okay, look at this, white has 7 pawns on the board, black has 4 pawns on the board. Of course, black is up a piece, but when it comes to material, I think white should be slightly better, especially because of this really annoying pawn storm. And as we said, even I think now there are even opportunities to maybe even play annoying rook lifts like rook to e3, rook to g3, attacking for the position on the king side. So in the game h6, Ruby kicks away the queen. We have queen to e3, we have queen to f5. Ruby includes now a new defender into the game. We have now h3 with the preparation to play the move g4, a rook from a to d8, attacking now the pawn on d5, and now d6. And this is a brilliant move here by the fish. d6 is, as I said, letting the pawns roll. This move, Stockfish waited now really for a long time because this move really creates madness. If you play e takes d6, this is not good because you get knight to f7, and after rook to f7, bishop to f7, king to f7, queen to e7, you have to step back. Now we pick up the rook here on d8. You can maybe try to play d takes e5, but now this other rook is coming into the game with rook to a3, rook to g3. The game is here, I think, lost for black for sure. The king is centralized, the king is exposed. Of course, we have many attacking chances. Maybe we can afterwards also pick up this pawn. So I think this is a one-way ticket in white's favor. So after move d6, the brilliant move d6, Ruby played here simply rook to e8, included now the rook into the defense. We have now g4 attacking the queen, queen to g5, f4, we have queen to h4, and now another stunner here by the fish, knight to g6. This is the beautiful part. Look at this. You cannot take, of course, the knight because of this bishop's activity. In the game, Ruby played knight to g4, sacrifice now the knight. We have now d takes e7, first attacking here the rook. In the game, knight to e3, Stockfish sacrifice now the queen, but it's only temporarily. First we have e takes f8, the check. After rook to f8, now Stockfish picks up the queen, and from this whole tactical sequence, Stockfish now is up the exchange. But now in the game, here we have bishop to d4. So Ruby fights back. Ruby got out of this mess, at least for a while. At least there are no checkmate threats, at least there are no complications. But look at this, Ruby has still 3 minor pieces on the board, and eventually will maybe even take out this pawn on c5. So in the game we have king to h2, rook to d8, we have c6, bishop to c6, rook to c1 attacking the bishop, rook to d6, bishop to b1, bishop to b6, and now a rook to f6, and here a rook to e2. So Stockfish is trying now somehow to include the rooks into the game, maybe attack further this knight. Ruby has to be now also careful where to go with the minor pieces. So in the game, rook to e6, we have bishop to d3, bishop to b7, rook to e1, after bishop to a5, b4. Interesting choice here by Stockfish, because after bishop to b4, now of course there is this idea rook to b1, but Ruby can defend everything with this idea knight to d5. Now we have knight to f5, trying to trade off more pieces. We have rook to e2, and now bishop to e2. So this is not so easy to play, I think, also for white. Look at this. Black has this passer. Black has still this annoying bishop pair that's really attacking in a dangerous way the king. The king is a little bit unpleasant here on g3, but if you play this game correctly, still I think white should win this game. But in human level, I think this would be still complicated. Many, I think, of us would play a draw here with the white pieces, but Stockfish plays, I think, more accurate, of course. That's why you see now how the fish is handling these types of positions. So in the game a5, finally, we have here the connection between the pawn and the bishop, so there are no tactics that are possible now on the b file. Rook to d1, knight to c3, rook to d8, king to h7, and now bishop to f3. This is a good choice when you have this kind of an endgame. First of all, I think we should get rid of the bishop pair. The bishop pair is really unpleasant to handle, so good choice here by Stockfish to somehow maybe trade off the pieces. But Ruby is not allowing the scenario. Plays bishop to a6, knight to d4, we have bishop to b5, knight to c2, attacking now the piece. Stockfish gets back, and after king to g6, finally Stockfish also grabs now the pawn. So at least one problem solved. At least Stockfish doesn't have to think about this pawn on the a file. So in the game, bishop to c5, Stockfish plays actively with the rook, bishop to d7, again the rook comes behind, knight to d4, we have a check, bishop to e4, bishop to e4, and now Stockfish again attacks the bishop. The main goal is now somehow maybe to trade off the knight for one of these bishops. If this game ends with a rook versus bishop endgame and still we have these two pawns for both sides on the board, then it should be, of course, completely winning here for white. So in the game, bishop to b7, knight to f3, king to g7, rook to e5, attacking the bishop. Stockfish pushed the pawn further. Now the knight is coming into the game. King to f6. Now we have h5, creating now again new spaces for white. We have bishop to d3, rook to e8, bishop to c5, king to f3. Again with the same motif. If you play bishop to d4, then of course rook to d8 is going to happen. You will lose one of these bishops, so that's why here Stockfish is going for this kind of a line. Of course, Rubi is again not falling for this trick. So that's why bishop to h7. We have rook to d8, bishop to b1, rook to d5. The bishop has to step back, again attack against the bishop. Now Stockfish attacks the other bishop, plays now a check, and after king to g7, now king to e4. Very, very important move. Now the king is getting more into the game. So from this point on, I think here it's obvious that white is going to win the game. So in the game, king to h7, we have rook to b7, bishop to g7, knight to f5, bishop to f8, king to e5. Look at this, the king is getting more and more into the game. We have bishop to a2, king to f6, so this is now the perfect square for the king. No checks are possible, of course, by any of these bishops. Bishop to a3, Rubi is trying somehow maybe to deliver checks behind, but it's not working. Stockfish plays now first, knight to h4, bishop to e6, f5, and after bishop to c4, now comes the stunner, rook takes f7. And this is the way to go, because here's the problem. You cannot take out even the rook with the move bishop to f7, because after king to f7, bishop to c1 is obviously happening. But now look at this. We play f6, bishop to g5. Now the knight is coming into the game. You can maybe play something like this. But now king to e6, bishop to c1. Maybe you're trying somehow again to get the bishop behind. But look at this. First we push the pawn. Again, the king doesn't have access to both of the squares. You can maybe play something like bishop to a3. But now after king to d7, king to e8, bishop to b4, knight to e7. This is now completely winning. Here the bishop is cut off from the defense of the f8 square, so it's now completely winning, of course, here for white. So after move rook to f7, so you see Rubi cannot pick up the rook. Now the rook is getting again on a new active square. The knight is coming into the game. Bishop to g5, king to e5. Again attack against the rook. Bishop to b5. Now Stockfish lets this pawn roll here on f6. We have bishop to f6. You cannot do anything here, even if you play something like, I don't know, bishop to c4. The problem is now you get checkmated here on g7. So after move f6, bishop to f6, Rubi had to sacrifice the piece. But now after a couple more moves, the game ended with a beautiful checkmate on h8. So really, really stunning game. Really cool theory of the Slav defense. Let's go to this critical moment. e4 after b4, you play knight to d5. Look at this, c takes d5, e takes d5, not to play the move e5. This is not good. E takes d5, much more correct. Black needs now to develop in a different way. Can never play this move e6 that we have seen before, would I think solve many positional problems. So now after g6, bishop to c4, bishop to f4, castling, and then of course a3, as we saw, solved many positional tactical problems in white's game. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the study. I hope that you enjoyed this game, because I think these are very important games. Many of us would play differently these games. Many of us would mess this up, so that's why I left the Stockfish games. They're showing us new direction. They're showing us really cool ideas, cool approaches in some lines and some particular sidelines. So again, a beautiful game here played by Stockfish against Rubi. So okay, what to say, if you want to see more about this kind of games, check out my coverage of the computer chess games. Here's the link of our whole playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.